In this video, I'm going to give you my take on the role that volume plays in determining which way price is going to go. Is it going to go up or down? Hello everyone, my name is Michael Lamott. I'm the founder of ChartYourTrade.com, and our goal is to inspire millions of hardworking people just like you to take advantage of the stock market. Now, in this video, Albert reached out to me and asked if I could do a video about volume and how to interpret it, and he gave me some stock picks. So from his list, we're going to go through these ones right here. We're going to look at Align Technology, Coherent Inc., Arista Networks, and ABMD Inc. So let's dive right in and see the story that volume is telling us. Let's dive right into this weekly chart of Align Technology. The ticker symbol was ALGN. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you is that volume is just one piece of many different criteria that we consider, and that it's always going to be kind of a secondary thing that we're looking at. Price is always going to be king. Volume helps support and tell the story. And it's very contextual as well. So, for example, let's take a look at this week here, right? We could see that Align is starting to break out, make new 52-week highs back in October of 2015. And it's doing that on very heavy volume that ended up being heavier than it was since July of 2015, so about 3 months or so, heaviest volume. Okay, great. So you wouldn't, if you're just looking at that in a vacuum, you would expect that this would be a stock that would go off to the races, right? But that's not what happened at all. You have that breakout, and then you get some more choppy action. Some more choppy action between October 2015 and really around March of 2015. And if you're just looking at volume by itself, I think that it's real easy to misinterpret. I think that what really ends up giving you the edge in the market is synthesizing all these different elements. So not just price action, but also looking at the volume and also thinking about how you're going to position size around all these elements. And so that's why in so many videos you hear me talking about position sizing and how you're going to enter and exit and how are you going to scale out of a position. Because when let's say you bought this and let's say it's chopping around, you don't want to be sitting with a stock like this just because, oh, look at the volume dried up. Unless if you're somebody that is a really long-term player, you don't want to be sitting, if you entered right here, you don't want to be sitting with a stock that's going to consolidate for another 5 months. Or maybe you are, that everybody has their own strategy. But for me personally, I wouldn't be comfortable sitting with a move like that. It's not until we get over here that a line starts to break out. And then here we have another volume bar, right? And it's really these volume bars that tend to be above average, that stick out like a sore thumb. Some people call them skyscrapers. Some people just call them big volume bars. Call them whatever you want. They're weeks of abnormal volume activity and abnormally high volume activity. And in this particular week, rather than doing what it did back here where it just sold off and then continued to chop around sideways, note that back here you start closing towards the bottom of the range and you're not really breaking out again. Over here you have that sell-off, you close more in the middle of the range. And so when you have elevated volume and you get a down week and you end up closing in the middle of the week, that's a sign that, yeah, there's some sellers that are coming in, but you also have buyers coming in and buying that dip. And the fact that it's closing in the middle of the week, that's showing you that there are buyers coming in, that there is demand. And at least for that week, not that that's a trend that's necessarily going to continue, because as we continue to look through this chart, you can see here that that happened on this week over here too. Fell for the week, closed below the 10-week line, closed in the middle of the range, and then what happened? You chop around more below the 10-week line, and then it falls. Right? So it's really trying to figure out, or I guess the more appropriate thing to say is that you're reading this story on the chart, but you don't know what the ending is going to be of the story. Nobody knows what the ending is ultimately going to be. So what we need to do is understand the context and include stops along the way that will help us manage this risk, and also have the context too of what's our time frame. I tend to default into a shorter term swing trading time frame because that's what I'm most comfortable with. But if you're somebody, let's say that you're somebody that is taking a intermediate term or a longer term approach, then sitting through something like this and sitting through these consolidations, it's not troubling at all. But if you're somebody that is a shorter term trader, then why would you want to sit through something that's just going to chop around for about a year before it starts to get going again? There's lots of different ways to trade. But back to volume, you start to get some support around this 40-week line. And if we look at those high volume bars again, right over here, you bounce right off the 40-week line, and you could arguably say on that week that you started to also get resistance at the 10-week line. Now you start to look at which way is the trend going and what would be the more likely scenario. What would make it roll over versus what would make it continue to chop versus what would continue the trend higher. In my opinion, if we didn't get back above this high over here, then we're still in the chop zone. If we made a new low this week, then we would start to see a greater downtrend, and then this would be the next level of support right over here that week. And then if it breaks below that, now you're making lower lows and the trend is starting to head lower. That doesn't happen. We continue higher, and then you get some more big volume bars. And over here, you get this monster volume week, and you bounce right off the 10-week line. And the reason for these volume weeks, it could be anything. When you're interpreting the chart, at least from my experience, it's not... It might be interesting to know the reasons why, but it's far more important to understand what is happening. And the what is that you get this move to the 10-week line for whatever reason, and you get this huge volume surge of buyers coming in and buying that, and you're closing off the 10-week line. To me, that's the big takeaway. The reason why could be anything, and that's up to anyone to speculate on. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of conflict on why people think that happened, and people could point to different reasons, but the more important thing is that it happened. So you continue to work your way higher, you're getting even more volume coming in. It's always good to see volume coming in on the way up. That's showing that the stock is being bid higher as you're making new highs. And then we start to roll over a bit. you get this volume spike over here. You're getting some buyers coming in right at around that 10-week line. Volume starts to really dry up right over here, and you're starting to get this wide and loose price action. Note that back here and on the way up, much tighter, and now the consolidation itself is a bit wider and looser than what it was down here. If we're looking at that, it's comparatively wider and looser. Let's measure just to make sure. All right, so here you have about a 25 to 27% consolidation. Back here, what did we get? We had about a 15% consolidation. Back here, when it was doing this, you had another 18% consolidation. So as we compare the price action, it's getting progressively wider and looser, and you're seeing the volume come in as well. That's telling us that there's a bit of a character change going on, and it's not necessarily done just yet. Like, I wouldn't just say like, oh, it's definitely done, but it's a character change, and when the character of a stock changes, that's something that we need to be aware of, because when the character does change, it typically is an indication that the move could be over, at least over the near term. It might not be done permanently, but at least over the near term, I would suspect that we would either continue getting more choppiness until we start to tighten up and get a base that's a little bit more constructive, or we do begin to roll over from this point. And also looking at these volume bars here, you get the sell-off that week. You do get a little bit of a bounce off the 10-week line, but then the week immediately following, you get another slice below that 10-week line, and you're getting this bigger consolidation again. So that's my 2 cents on what's going on with the line. Let's take a look at the next one. We'll go a little quicker here with Coherent Inc. A lot of the concepts are going to be the same from chart to chart to chart. The only thing that's really changing is the ticker symbols, right? So back here, you get this big surge on volume, closes at the highs. That's good. You continue to consolidate a little bit, and you continue your trend higher. Then, just looking at the volume, I'm really drawn to these big skyscrapers, right? So what's happening over here and what's happening back here? So you're running along the 10-week line, you explode on heavy volume on earnings week, then you begin to consolidate a little bit more as you pull into the 10-week line, and then you explode on heavy volume off the 10-week line. So at this point, it's showing me that volume is still there, and if I'm somebody that missed this entire move, then I'm probably getting in right at around there, because you have this this blast off on earnings, and you get this little bit of a consolidation here, and so I would draw a trend line like this, and probably look to get in above this weekly close and exit on a close probably either below that week or potentially right below the 10-week line. And on that breakout, on that volume, that's an indication that we are probably likely to head higher off the 10-week line at that point. And that's what happened. We ended up moving roughly about 45% before it started to consolidate and pull back again. And so now when we start to head below the 10-week line, and here we bounced off of it, here we get a reversal week, closed at the lows, and the volume is elevated. So that's a poor week, but the price action just by itself isn't telling us enough about the direction just yet. It's a nasty week. You might be tightening up your stocks. You might be looking at the context of what's going on in the overall market. How much are you personally up in this position? What do you want to try to do if you're somebody that's looking at buying up here? What I at this point, like it's had such a big run and you're starting to get a big negative flag like that, I wouldn't be looking to buy this on a bounce over here, because to me, this is where the story starts to change. You're starting to get some of this wider and looser action. You get this slice below the 10-week line. It recovers, and you know, major institutions take a long time to enter a position and a long time to exit a position, and that's why you get big long uptrends like this, and you get downtrends that tend to last a while as well, because they have billions of dollars at their disposal. They have so many shares that they can't just unload everything all at once. It takes time for them to do that. So the person that's selling back here is probably the same group that's selling here and on the way up. And now that it's become clearer to the market that the move is done, then you get the bigger sell-off. But this is part of the reason why we want to definitely pay attention to volume and try to interpret it, but let it be a bit of a secondary indicator, and the primary indicator is always going to be the price action, and the way that we're going to manage our position is going to be more based on where we're at in the position and following all the risk management rules that we've spoken about in prior videos. And if you have questions about any of that, just leave comments down below. But we start to get price action like this. Volume is slightly elevated, but you can just see how the tone of this move changes, where it starts to get wider and looser. You get to see that big volume sell-off. Yeah, it hasn't broken the 40-week line yet. Maybe it's a support zone, right? Or maybe this wide and loose action should be telling us that maybe the end is near, but then you see that it starts to tighten up over here, and people start to get a little bit short-sighted, and that's where they see like, oh, but it's starting to tighten up over here, the volume is drying up, you're getting support around that 10-week line, and look at this, we started to break out to new highs, and volume is elevated. They do all that without looking at the bigger context of what was going on with this move. Now, I know that it's super easy for me to look at this with the benefit of hindsight and seeing that this already happened, but you get this wide and loose action. You get a base that's not really constructive. There's something that's not really a base at all, and as we're seeing the selling come in, that's heavy-duty selling. This is a heavy selling week where you're reversing off the highs, closing at the lows. And yeah, you did start to break out on volume over here, right? But the prior price action is still not constructive. And so I think that it's real easy to try to interpret, and I think that a lot of people get caught up in the am I right, am I wrong, versus trying to just play the probabilities and keeping risk small. And if you see a move like this, yeah, like maybe you do participate in a move like this, but where are you going to place your stop? And I think that that's the more important thing. And also what's important is how much are you going to risk on this particular idea, because knowing that the price action is getting wonky, that it's getting wider and looser, that you're seeing some heavy-duty selling come in, maybe you take a little bit smaller of a position. Maybe you use bracketed stops. Maybe you roll your stop up a little bit quicker so that way you don't have as much at risk on what is a higher risk idea, especially after such a tremendous move that started back in January of 2016, and you have a move already of over 300%. How much more can it possibly go? Well, it can continue to go higher, but when you see the price action like this, it really tells us that, well, not just the price action, but also the price and volume action, it tells us that you could get a change in the trend in store, and that's what happened over here. And you're seeing the heavy duty selling in all these weeks over here. And yeah, I would probably suspect that if you do get a bit of a rally, that I would look for this 40-week line to present some big time resistance, as well as this 10-week line when it catches up to that. It may even start to catch some resistance right over here at this low and create that little bit of a zone. So we'll have to see what happens with Coherent Inc. Arista Networks, kind of throwing this one here as a bonus. You get the picture by now. So you have the big volume bars. You're getting them in this particular stock. You're getting them bouncing off of this trend line here, right? You're getting it starts back here. You get a real clear bounce right off of it on this week over here. Heavy volume. Same thing over here. We'll see what happens. We're approaching it again right now, and this is being recorded on Wednesday, so we'll see what kind of volume we get for the remaining portion of the week. But this right here, that's a real heavy-duty sell signal, because it's an outside reversal week, so the price action totally encapsulates the price action of the week prior, went higher, reversed lower, closed at the lows, closed below the 10-week line, and it did it on the heaviest volume that Arista Networks has had. Let's just shift this over here. The highest volume it has had in its entire history by far. So that's telling me that, yeah, that it's probably done. It's probably done at this point, but we always have to see. Anything can happen in the market. It's already had a spectacular almost 300% run, or greater than a 300% run, depending on where you measure from. And does it deserve a rest? Sure. Is it done permanently? Who knows? We'll have to see. But over the near term, this kind of price action with this kind of volume is something that would spook me, and I would, if I'm still long this, it better be for an intermediate, at least, to a much longer term portfolio. If in a shorter term account, I have exited this a while ago. I'm hopefully exiting at some point during this week. Let's just quickly take a look at the daily chart. So you're getting this run up ahead of earnings, probably selling a bit into strength if I'm still holding this through earnings. But taking a look at this real choppy action, unless if you're somebody that's able to like really be a sniper and pick off a move off the 40-week line like this, then you're probably not in it at all if you are a short-term trader. And if you are shorter term, then on a move like this, maybe you're even going short. But if you are short Arista Networks, I would be very cognizant that you are coming right into that that ascending trend line. So that's my piece on Arista Networks. Okay, last one. We're looking at a biomed. The ticker symbol is ABMD. And same stories as we've heard already. You know, we start looking at those big volume bars and look at what story those are telling us, and then interpret where we're at in the move currently and try to figure out from there how far into the move are we and what is the story that the price action and the volume is telling us. And so at this point, I would say that we are starting to get a bit wide and loose in this price action up here, even though it's positive if you're somebody that's been holding it from way back here, or even if you're somebody that's a little bit shorter term and got in down here, you're still above that 10-week line. But the price action is starting to get ahead of itself. It is getting a bit wide and loose, and when this tends to happen, it's also possible to see a big spike down as well. And so I would be prepared for any kind of scenario. If I am long, and if this is a longer term position, then I would anticipate that that's something that I might need to hold through, that I'm not just looking at this chart every single day or every single week and then waking up next week and seeing it be down. Let's measure what it would be. So from here, come on ruler, to be down about 15% or so could definitely happen. But you're still getting the upward trajectory, and you could interpret that you're getting some support right off the 10-week line, right there, that it got bought off the 10-week line. But the difference is that you are getting these wider and looser bars. In order for this to be constructive to me, I'd want to see this can start tightening up and be kind of similar to how it was back there, because if it starts to get really far ahead of itself, then I think that you could see a stronger move back down. And also what the volume is doing here. To take a quick peek at the daily chart, kind of consolidated right around this 21-day exponential moving average, and then rallied off of that. Volume has been very heavy over the past couple of days, but you see that it's starting to round out over here. Yeah, if I'm long this, especially on a shorter term, I will be prepared for a slice below the 5-day exponential moving average, or a slice below the prior couple of days lows. And if that happens, I would also anticipate a move back down to the 10-day exponential moving average in a hurry, or possibly even back down to the 21-day exponential moving average in a hurry. And that would be a move of about up to about 10%. So lots of different variables to look at and consider, and this is part of the story that volume gives us on the charts. So I think that volume is very complex. I think that there's a lot of nuance to it, and I think that it's very contextual. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments down in the comment section below. Let me know if you have any questions on any of this. I'll be glad to help you out. If you like this video, click that thumbs up button. That's really going to help us out a lot. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that way you get every single update. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care and have a great day.